This is why they hate us. In Western societies, over the last decades, the new model imposed by the ruling class progressively forced the workers, the producers, to relocate in rural areas. The cities had become too expensive, too gentrified, and many indigenous Europeans strived to escape the problems inherent to ethnoculturally diverse neighborhoods such as insecurity. A phenomenon known as the white flight. And while the workers/producers progressively fled to small towns and rural areas, the members of the globalist elite remained in large cities where wealth is concentrated. And where they could easily reap the fruits of the productive class through ostentatious consumption. In time, the indigenous proletariat became invisible, forgotten in peri-urban or rural areas. Before also becoming invisible in the media and cultural productions, films, series. In the cities, this productive class was gradually replaced by a generalized wage-earning class. And the extra-European sub-proletariat, the neo-slaves brought from the Third World to serve the privileged classes, taxi, food delivery, cleaners, maids. Indeed, in virtue of the globalized economy, factories and production have been relocated to countries where the cost of labor is significantly lower. And mass immigration served as a strategy for capitalist companies to engage in social dumping, paying migrant workers below the norm specified by law to increase their profits. Thus putting pressure downwards on salaries and reducing social standards for the indigenous working class. In short, the urban bourgeoisie plunder resources produced in the rural areas through transgressive libidinal consumption. And benefited with mass immigration from malleable workers, to cater to their every need. In order to be able to continue to feed their system, this bourgeois elite constantly create new taxes, absurd rules, for example green taxes, and open the borders for always more extra European cheap labor force. They even started to abandon this surplus of neo-slaves in rural areas which once preserved from the chaos formerly confined to the big cities increasingly began to face the same problems. And those who dare to point out those issues are quickly labeled racist, far-right or neo-Nazi. A war is waged by the globalist elite against the white-rooted proletariat in the countryside refusing to die in silence. Those globalists found a way to absolve themselves from the guilt related to their economic privileges with the virtue gained from the exacerbated defense of the supposedly oppressed minorities. Back in the 70s, progressively, the left ideologies shifted from the social, economics, classes relationship, to the societal, race, sex, sexuality. At a time when inequalities and poverty were on the rise on the back of the success of the neoliberal capitalist system, the new left replaced communism with anti-racism as its core doctrine. The elite adhered to this philosophy to increase their societal capital, i.e. the strategy of ideological distinction, a tactic to climb the social ladder, thanks to the spectacle of righteousness that necessarily involves the demonization of Caucasian masses. In short, in order to demonstrate a certain intellectual and virtuous class membership, one must legitimate the societal violence against white working classes via the unconditional defense of the minorities. And while the supposedly oppressed diversity can emancipate through constant moral transgressions, the white proletariat became the receptacle of all the accumulated resentment, the unique timeless oppressors justifying the enmity towards them. What's more, the indigenous working class, through the imperative of production and taxes, feed the parasites above them, the globalized elite engaging in tax evasion. And also feed the parasites below, the lumpen proletariat engaging in social fraud. In summary, the white working class finance their detractors, politicians, journalists, as well as the cheap labor imported to replace them. While being demonized by the globalist elites protected, thanks to their economic status, for example living in secured gated communities, from the collateral damages of a hostile dogma that validates racial hatred against Caucasians. The ruling classes are ruining Western societies while hiding behind a virtuous mask, the societal capital, i.e. the vilification of the autochthonous producers. Undoubtedly, they know too well that if one day the indigenous proletariat become aware of its own strength, it could be the end of their reign of chaos. And that is why they hate us so much. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment for more videos.